Welcome to We Left the Nest with Robert,
and Melissa,
redefining us.
Join us as we share our personal stories of love and loss, navigating hard times, and the joy that comes with growing up together.
Listen in for inspiring and relatable discussions that remind us all of the power of love and resilience in the journey of life.
We'll explore our past and talk about what we've learned over the last 25 years.
We're diving deep into the beautiful chaos of life, including marriage, family, raising kids, and the challenges that come up.
With sprinkles of lighthearted laughter to keep things fun, get comfy while we engage in
Candid conversations with no reservation.
Welcome to our very first episode, the very first episode of We Left the Nest.
We Left the Nest.
We did.
That's a good name.
We left the nest. We decided on that because that's what we did. I got this job that came with the house. We moved into the house and left all three of the kids at home in the nest. And now we're just here figuring out life together without kids around. But dogs. So the dogs will be present a lot. And they'll probably be distracting a little bit. But we decided, we've been talking about doing this for a while. I've been talking about doing this for a while in all different ways. And then recently I asked him if he would join me and if he'd do a podcast with me. And he said yes, much to my surprise.
Unfortunately for her.
Unfortunately for me, but
She's
luckily for all
no.
of you, for anybody tuning in, he's a real gem. It's going to be fun. He's going to add a lot of content to this thing, so it'll be good. But yeah, been talking about doing it for years and keep waiting and making excuses for what we need and this and that, and we're just like, let's do it. We've got enough stuff. And is the lighting perfect? Probably not. Did I get made up for this? Nope. This is how we are every day. And so we're showing up as we are, and we're going to talk about our life and everything that comes along with it. And with this first episode, we're going to talk about, we're going to start with how we met. How we met.
That had to happen at some point.
It did happen at some point. Many moons ago.
Mm-hmm.
Many moons ago, we met. And you remember how we met?
I could guess.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong,
Uh-huh.
is there a penalty?
No penalties. No penalties. Let's set the ground rules right now. I think in doing this podcast, you and I are going to learn a lot of things that maybe we haven't said to each other before, and that's what's going to make it even more fun. But no penalties. Nothing held against each other. And if anything else, we just get to know each other a little more. So
I would say then that we met at your father's print shop, and we instantly fell in love like a fairy tale story.
You got one thing right.
The falling in love part?
No.
No? Okay.
No, we did meet at my father's print shop, but I didn't like you when I met you.
Mm.
Now, hate's a strong word, so I don't want to use the word hate. I didn't hate you, but you annoyed me because you were just so
damn good.
Exactly. You were so full of yourself, and you're so confident in yourself, and you had this huge ego, and I couldn't stand that about you.
I mean, that's fine because I was with somebody. All right.
Yes, we were both in relationships. We weren't looking for romance, but I just couldn't stand that about you, which I think was actually beneficial, because the reason I didn't like that about you is because I wished that I could be that way.
And apparently you got over it at some point.
I was not confident in myself. I was a 13-year-old girl. I was 13. You were 15 or 16 because you're 2.5 years older than me.
It's important that you mention that.
Yeah.
Like every time.
I like to mention that.
As often
you
as
just
possible.
had a birthday on Saturday, actually. Yeah. I won't say your age because, that's rude. But
you won't tell people that I'm 45?
You can tell people you're 45.
Well, I'm not going to do that.
And if they do the math, they can figure out how old that makes me. I guess they would have to know exactly our birth dates to figure
Nobody who
out.
watches this knows math. Don't worry about it.
I married you because I don't like math, and you are great at it, so yeah.
So then what happened?
What had happened is your aunt became friends with my parents, my family, and purchased a house down the street from us that went for sale. And you would come down and visit her.
Mm-hmm.
And stay with her on the weekends.
And play ping pong.
Yes. Her house was like the neighborhood hangout. She had a ping pong table. She had a basketball
table.
court.
Oh, okay.
Welcome to my life. A basketball court. She stocked the fridge with sodas, and the cabinets had candy bars and snacks.
This is the late 90s, by the way.
Played music. It wasn't a creepy way. It was just like almost like a rec center on our block. Everybody just hung out. The neighborhood boys would come to play basketball or ping pong or football out in the street or whatever, and
the neighborhood girls would come to check them out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's what we were doing.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Mind you, when I met you, you had a half ponytail. You had like all this hair up here was long, and you would wear it back in a hair tie.
It's kind of hot though.
That was not hot to me.
I think I should keep growing this out.
That
to
was
get there.
No. We're not going back to that. But I was not attracted to you like that. I mean, it was fun to hang out and it was fun to be competitive, but I wasn't attracted to you. You were just a kid that came out that would hang out with us when you visited, and it was so annoying. You'd be like, I'm going to win this game. And I'm like, sure you are. And then you'd win it. And it was so annoying. I would get mad every time because you would just say what you were going to do and then you did it. And I didn't like that. I think it's because I wanted to be able to do that and I just couldn't do that. But we were both in relationships at the time. And after a while, so you were 15, and at some point, you finished high school.
Yeah, I finished high school.
Yeah.
And then had to move out of my house.
Yeah, you got kicked out because you finished high school.
Yeah.
And you were basically told, well, you're 18 now, so, right? And your aunt let you move in with her because she had this huge house. It was like 4 or 5 bedrooms, and it was just her and her cat. So you moved in with her, and you were going to college. Mm-hmm. And I lived down the street, and my parents wouldn't let me go to regular high school. So I had to do independent study. So I was like home all day, every day.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty much what happened.
Yeah. And then at some point, we were still both in the same relationships. And this was 3 years later. I was still in my relationship and you were still in your relationship. And we got to know each other a little better, obviously, over 3 years, and then you were living there. And then I broke up with my boyfriend, and that's when I started hanging out there more, right? Because mm-hmm. I was waiting for Mike to call. Right?
Which is my best friend.
His best friend was in the Marines, and I thought he was cute, and so then I would go spend my whole day waiting for him to call, being 17 and not realizing, maybe this guy's not interested in you because he never calls, right? But you were still in your relationship, and we just talked about everything. And we talked about, like, before I broke up with my boyfriend, we would talk about our relationships, and we weren't trying to impress each other. We just really became friends, like, over this time. And I started not liking that you were allowing yourself to be treated the way that you were being treated by your girlfriend.
She didn't like my high school girlfriend.
I honestly didn't have a problem with her until I was around you more and I saw how you were being treated and manipulated, and that frustrated me. Because I saw it, and I don't know if you saw it or if you saw it and you were just like, this is just how it is. But I would, like, try to tell you, like, she's always giving you ultimatums. And then you just cave. You just do it. And then, yeah. And so we just would have these conversations. And what ended up happening for me, I don't know did I ever tell you this part? I don't know. I've told other people this, but so I was sitting there every day waiting for him to call from Japan. I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I started to catch feelings for you.
You caught him.
I did. But I had broken up with my boyfriend in high school. And you were still with your girlfriend. which is fine. Like, I would never have been like the type of person to cheat, and you wouldn't either. I never got that vibe from you. So it wasn't like I was like trying to like slide into the DMs or something.
That wasn't even a thing back then.
I know, but I had to say it. So anyway, but what ended up making me actually catch feelings for you was how committed you were to her and how much you doted on her and loved her and treated her even though she was mistreating you. Right? Because, like, I had ended my relationship with my high school boyfriend because all I wanted was for him to care about me. Right? Like, he was always spending time with his friends and he was involved in things that weren't great things, and they took priority over our relationship, which was whatever.
So you thought, oh, I could manipulate this guy.
Manipulate?
Yeah, because the way that I was.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't like that.
The perfect guy.
It wasn't that. No, it wasn't that I wanted to slide in and start manipulating you the way that your girlfriend was manipulating you. It was that I wanted somebody to love me the way you loved her. Like, my dad wasn't very emotionally available as a kid. My uncle and my cousin had this relationship that, like, you knew that, like, she was, like, his world, right? And my dad just wasn't like that. Like, he had 4 daughters. He had a son. There were 5 of us and my mom. And, like, he just worked. And he just wasn't really emotionally available. And so I think I was looking for, you know, a male figure to love me and dote on me and, like, me be important to them. And I saw that in you with her. And I wanted somebody to be like that with me. I wanted somebody to just, like, love me and think I was the best thing ever. And I found that in you. Isn't that great? Happily ever after. Okay, so that was how we met.
Is that true?
Oh, it was a long story. But anyway, you ended up breaking up with your girlfriend.
Because,
so the final straw
was another ultimatum.
So we were hanging out that day, and she had called you or paged you or something. I don't know if she paged you when you called. Anyway,
it was a long time ago.
She contacted you. And you had decided previously that you weren't going out to see her that weekend because to get to her, you had to walk, like, what was it, like 6 miles or something? Or 3 miles? It was like an hour walk to the public transit station, to the BART station. And then get on the BART train that was like an hour out to where she would have to pick you up. And you decided you weren't going to do that day, but she said, if you don't do it, we're breaking up. And so you got off the phone with her and you told me, and I was like, well, don't go, like, that's stupid. Like, if somebody's gonna break up with you because you didn't go out to see them on, like, the train or whatever, that's not, like, they don't care about you like that.
I mean, I also couldn't do it.
What do you mean?
I didn't have the money.
You left.
To do it.
You left.
But I didn't have the money to do it.
Well, you didn't have income because you were going to college and you were working sometimes at the Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
But you left because we had the conversation and you walked out the door and you're like, I have to go. And I was like, fine, whatever. Like, it was annoying, but whatever. So you left and I stayed there at your aunt's house. And I don't know, it wasn't super long after that. I don't know how long it was, but at some point you came back into the house. And I was like, I thought you were leaving. And you're like, I'm not going. And I was like, well, she's going to break up with you. And you were like, yeah, I know. I'm not going. And that was like, wow, he's really not going. And then you guys broke up. And then like a week later, I was like, well, will you be my boyfriend? And you said no. Why didn't you want to be my boyfriend?
Because it was too soon.
That's not what you said.
It was too soon.
You did not say it was too soon.
A week later?
It was a week later. And I knew everything I needed to know. I wanted you to be my boyfriend.
Well, that's a lot to know.
And you said, no, I've been in a relationship for 4 years. And what?
Go
What'd you
ahead,
say?
keep going.
What would you say?
No, keep going, it's fine.
Tell me, what did you say? Tell me. Tell the people.
I probably said something like, I want to be single for a while.
Uh-huh. I just want to be single for a while. That's what you said to me. And I was like, I understand the assignment. We're going to be single. So I started dating. like guys at work. Started going out and hanging out with them. And just going out, hanging out with them.
Yeah?
Yeah. Hanging out with them. And you decided you didn't like that. I was hanging out with a lot of guys.
Yeah? Yeah, you were.
Yeah. Yeah. I was. I was probably hanging out a little too much with other guys. You know. And you didn't like that.
No, so we didn't do that for very long.
No, we didn't do that for very long. I mean, maybe a week or two. I don't think it was very long that we were single. Right?
And then we got together.
Yeah, you asked me to be your girlfriend. After work on July 17th, 1999,
I knew that date.
I had gone to the A's game with your aunt and uncle, and you were working that day, and we waited for you to get off so that we could give you a ride home so you didn't have to take the BART home because you worked in the sausage stand.
I did.
Yeah. And you came back, and that night you asked me to be your girlfriend. And I was like, finally, I don't have to be single anymore. This is exhausting.
She was enjoying herself.
I was not enjoying myself. I was trying to make you realize that you didn't want me to be single. And it worked.
More than I wanted to be single, I didn't want you to be single.
I think that's really what
going
happened.
for?
Like, honestly, because like you were being single, like playing video games at your aunt's house. Mm-hmm. That was you being single. You didn't go on one date. You didn't talk to one girl. I don't even know if you left the house, except to go to school.
But man, the amount of time I didn't have to spend on the phone was great.
That's true, because your ex-girlfriend did. She did require a lot of time on the phone with you.
There's times now where I'll be home and my wife will call and then she'll just stay on the phone with me.
Yeah, it's so annoying. It annoys me. I'm like, why are we still on the phone? And you're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, I'm going to hang up because this is weird.
Yeah, I feel like she just wanted company. She's, 300 feet away at the office.
Yeah.
But...
No, I'll call to ask you a question. Like, legit have a question for you. And then I just end up starting to work again.
And staying on the phone, talking to me, sometimes randomly singing.
Because the thing is that, like, where we work, you help oversee things. So I will call with, like, a legitimate question about work. It's not like I'm just calling and asking you, like, what you want for dinner tonight. Like, I will ask a legitimate question. I need an answer to finish an email or look something up. And then I'll just start working again, but I have you on speakerphone. And then...
just ready to answer the next question.
And then, like, the other day, this just happened. And I was just like... why are we even still on the phone? And you're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, I'm hanging up now.
I was actually kind of annoyed that day about it, too.
You can just say, do you need anything else? Like, I get working and I'm not even paying attention to the fact that, like, until I'm like, why are we still on the phone? So anyway, that happened. And you asked me to be your girlfriend. July 17th.
Close. We left out one important step.
What step?
Well, on this journey... my best friend was still talking to her.
Oh, I forgot about this step. Mind you, this step he's about to tell you, I found out about, like, only 15 years ago, I think. We were well into our marriage by the time that he told me this story. So you go ahead, carry on.
So my best friend was talking to her, albeit sporadically and randomly, while he was in other countries. Because he was in the Marines and having to go through his years.
Deployments.
And so I couldn't just be boyfriend with her. I couldn't do that. We couldn't date.
Because he had what?
Well, he had dibs on you already.
He called dibs.
He was talking to you. Like, I can't just go and swoop in on the girl he's talking to.
Apparently this is guy code.
So when he called one day... I had to ask permission.
He asked permission.
Yeah.
I still think this is so cute.
He had all the rights to be able to court you.
Okay, court me. Yes.
Yeah.
He had staked his claim
and
to court me.
And so I can't just go in there and, work my magic.
Right. Because you don't want to mess with the friendship.
I mean, the friendship was established long before.
Right. And so, like, you don't want, like, that's, like,
So
you don't
the
want to
right
hurt
thing to
somebody.
do was be like, hey, I've been thinking I want to talk to her instead of you talking to her.
Mm-hmm.
And, he says yes. And then I'm able
Then
to
you
ask
ask
you.
me. So you ask permission from your best friend first.
Yes.
And then you could ask me to be your girlfriend.
Right. I couldn't just go in there and take
Right.
you.
That was a very crucial step that I missed a part of the story because it's not a part of my story as much as yours. But I'm glad you filled us in on that because I do think it's important that you did this in a respectable way.
Right.
And asked his permission.
She absolutely hates that part. She doesn't understand why it's important, but it's fine.
Anyway, so then we started dating July 17th, 1999. And we didn't tell anybody. We didn't tell anybody that we were dating.
No, not right away.
No. I mean, I think people could kind of, like, I think your aunt knew and your uncle knew. Like, we would do Saturday game days. And I'm pretty sure it was obvious that we were, like, smitten with each other. The way that you smile at me.
Smitten.
The way that you smile at me still to this day. Like, if we meet up somewhere or you see me somewhere and we're just coming like that. Yeah, the way, and it's so funny. The way that you look at me today is the way that you looked at me then. I love that. I love that. It's one of my favorite things about you. And my grandma, she's not with us any longer, but I remember having a conversation with her, and she was just like, I'm just so happy that you found, Robert, and that you stuck through everything and stayed with him and followed your heart. And she's like, you can just tell by the way he looks at you that he loves you. When you walk in the room, you're the only girl there to him. And she's right. Like, it's true. I love that about you. And those qualities that I saw in you that made me fall in love with you you've never wavered in those. You have always, like, loved me 100%. And you've never wavered in that. And because we weren't telling people that we were dating, I think that what happened a few months later was a big shock to a lot of people. They didn't know the relationship we had because they hadn't seen it.
Is that when we let them know we were dating?
Yes, actually. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the same time that yes.
Yes. Okay.
How do you even begin?
How do we go about this process?
This isn't funny. It's not funny. It was a really difficult time in our lives.
Put your serious face
my
on.
family's life. So, July 17th, we started dating, and I believe it was at the end of September that...
Do we need to do the math here?
I found out that I was pregnant.
How did that happen?
I don't know. It's so weird. But between those two times, my mom did have a conversation with me, and she asked me point blank if I was having sex with you. Are you having sex with Robert? And I told her no.
Lioness.
I did. I lied, and I told her no. And there's not an excuse for lying ever. I was 17. I didn't want to stop being able to see you, and so I lied and told her that we weren't having sex. And she actually... I'm not getting into that story. That'll be another day. Anyway, so...
Okay, so you were naughty.
I was naughty. But... rewind a little bit. The day we found out that I was pregnant, we took the pregnancy test in that bathroom upstairs at your aunt's house. Mm-hmm. I went in there and I took the test, and then I had you come in and look at it, and it said I was pregnant. And whenever I was growing up, my parents always, I remember hearing multiple times that if you ever get pregnant before you're married, that he'll leave you. You should be married before you get pregnant. Otherwise, the man will leave you. And so I remember looking at the pregnancy test and looking up at you and asking, like, because you're 6'2", and asking, like, are you going to leave me?
And I didn't know that I was required to leave, because that's not how I was brought up. So I didn't know that I was supposed to
You didn't know
leave.
that was an option.
So I did this. I think I did this the wrong way, because I didn't take that option that I didn't know existed.
Do you remember what you did? Do you remember what you said? Do you remember how you replied?
I don't remember the exact wording.
I looked at you terrified, holding this pregnancy test, and I asked you, I was like, are you going to leave me? And you grabbed me and wrapped me in your arms, and you hugged me and you embraced me, and you said, I'm not going anywhere. And you have never gone anywhere. In the 25 years
I had the option.
We've been together, you've never gone anywhere. You have held strong in what you promised me. And you didn't go anywhere. And at the time you were in college, I was in high school on track to graduate early, working at a grocery store as a courtesy clerk. And I knew I was going to have to tell my parents. I was devastated, like terrified. I wouldn't say devastated, I was terrified.
We got to get through the part where I was 19 and you were 17.
Right. You were 19, I was 17. And so there's that part of it, right? Like I was 17 and a half. And you were 19.
About to be 20.
Yeah. Well, no, at that time.
I was a month away from being 20.
Right, okay, yeah. Yeah, this is why I married you, because you do math. So anyway. So you were 19, I was 17. So that was another issue, I guess.
For another time.
That was another story for another day. My parents were definitely not happy about that.
But it was an issue that we had to navigate.
It definitely was. So, I tell my mom. I got up the courage to tell my mom. I remember going into her bedroom one day. I'm like, I need to remember to look forward.
I just keep looking at you.
I'm going into her bedroom. I go in her bedroom in the morning. And I climb up in her bed. And my heart's pounding. Like I'm sweating. Super nervous. I don't remember the words. I don't even remember how they came out. I don't know what they were. I remember telling her that I was pregnant. And after that, like just my head was just spinning. Just being really like dizzy and my head spinning and my heart pounding. And I remember my mom saying, what are people going to think? What am I going to tell my family? And you have to tell your daddy. I remember those three things. I don't really remember much after that.
Now, keep in mind, this is the very late 90s here. This is 1999.
Yeah.
Things are a bit different now with parenting and what people think should be done. But
I think that depends on like
the priority
and stuff,
has shifted a little more towards the people dealing with the issue versus what people think about the issue. And so nowadays we would be much more focused on the girl who got pregnant as opposed to, oh my God, what are people going to think?
I mean, and I think that that's true in some cases, but depending on, you know, a family's beliefs and how they're raising their children, I think it very much could still be what are people going to think.
It can be, but it's a much more acceptable of a thing nowadays.
It's much more common. It's much more common, and it's not as socially shunned and frowned upon, but I think it just really just depends on how people are raising their kids and what community they surround themselves with. We weren't raised with any religion, but you know, and I'm not telling, this is my part of the story. My mom and dad, they have a different part of the story, and how they worked through things and dealt with things. That's their story, and it's their truth. And so I'm not saying this to like talk down on them. This is my experience of what happened. I love my parents. I respect my parents. You know, I wouldn't be who I am today without them. So, you know, I want to put out there that like, this is this is like my version of what happened, and we have to understand that there's their version as well.
I mean, I'm pretty glad they made you.
So. I'm glad they made me too. But I mean, I don't want like this, somebody coming in and watching this could think, oh, how dare her parents? And, everybody's going to respond in a different way. And it's fair for everybody to have their own emotions and their own reactions and things. And, my mom was going through her own, feelings about things and her own family status and, her own emotions around it. And so, yeah, I mean, that I just share that because those are the things that were most impactful to me. And then in the days, and I don't think it was very long that I stayed there. The days and weeks after, it was very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable to be at home. I don't even remember actually telling my dad. I think my mom might have told him. But I don't remember telling him. And I don't remember telling my siblings. A lot of that is just blank for me. But I do remember after everything happened and it got out, however it got out, I remember telling my mom. That's what I remember. And then they said I couldn't go see you anymore. I couldn't go over to the house anymore to see you.
Because I might get her pregnant a second time.
And they created a visitation schedule that was like, it was random. Like it was like Tuesdays and Thursdays or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, something like that. It was certain days of the week between like 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. and it had to be supervised by one of my siblings.
Because they didn't want to do it.
I don't remember if my parents were ever home, but I know that one of my siblings had to be there. I think it was my little sister who would be in the room with us. But anyway, we had to be in the living room of our house, and they set up this visitation schedule. I don't know what else to call it. Like they didn't call it that at the time, but
you were on lockdown.
I wasn't allowed to really go out there. I could go to work, I could go to school, but I couldn't like go do anything else really. That's my recollection. It could have been different. Since then, I've had conversations with my parents, and my mom says I was really like bad at the time. Like, our house wasn't very great, and if you use the blow dryer, it would trip the breaker, and I would do that on purpose and turn the lights off, and I would slam doors, and I don't remember these things, but I'm sure I did. I was very angry. I was very hurt, and I felt very unsupported and very unloved. And I wanted to go in my own home with my family. I would walk into a room and I just remember people leaving. My older sister wouldn't talk to me. And I mean, we've all had conversations at this point. These are stories for another day, but it was rough. And I'm not saying it wasn't rough for my family. They were all going through their own things, right? I honestly believe my parents didn't have a lot. They weren't rich. They didn't have a fancy house, but they had their kids, and their kids had always been good kids, and they were proud of their kids. And it just felt like I took that away from them because they weren't proud that I was pregnant, obviously, right? I remember one time I was standing in the kitchen making something to eat, and my mom came up, or vice versa. Maybe she was in there and I came to make something to eat. Either way, we ended up standing next to each other in the kitchen, and I remember her saying, I know that I love you. I just don't know how to feel love for you right now. And at the time, that felt a lot like my mom saying, I don't love you, right? Like, I was 17. I don't know, that's left up to interpretation. I guess it wasn't technically saying I don't love you. But that's how it feels. She
loved you.
She did tell me she loved me. She just said she didn't know how to feel love for me. And so it felt a lot like she didn't love me. And so I'm just in this it was a very toxic environment. And because everybody was trying to figure out how to deal with it. Mind you, there's 7 of us in 800 square feet. So it's not like there's somewhere to go. Like, there was 2 sets of bunk beds in our bedroom, right? We had 1 bathroom for 7 people. It wasn't like I could just go in my room and hide away, right? I could go to my bed. So it was rough. It was a rough time. And it wasn't too long after that. There were some other things that went on about you being 19 and me being 17 and some things that happened on the in-between part. But it was in early October because it was before my little sister's 13th birthday, because I remember I was already out of the house on her 13th birthday because they got her a puppy. And
there was room for a puppy because you had left.
I remember she got a puppy that year because I wasn't at the house when
Down
she
to
got the
6
puppy.
people. We're down to 6 people in 800 square feet. I think we got room for a puppy.
But that's how I know it was before October 13th because that's my sister's birthday. And
You got replaced by a puppy.
it was her, I think it was her 13th birthday,
Just so
actually.
you know.
Yeah,
If
I
you
was
never
replaced
thought
by
about
a
it that
puppy.
way,
No, I didn't.
That's what happened.
So anyway, at some point, my parents called me into the room and had this conversation. I think everybody was there, honestly.
Puppy didn't slam the doors either.
I don't remember the conversation. I remember my dad talking about King Arthur and being cut off at the knees and giving, I don't know, he was talking about, I don't even remember. Because I didn't know the reference. I didn't know he was talking about with King Arthur. I just remember that part. Anyway, the bottom line, what I got out of that conversation was that if I wanted to leave, that I could. But if I left, I was choosing to walk away from the relationship and I had to be the one to go back and initiate, like, fixing things, kind of, I guess. And that's my interpretation at my age. That's what it was. So when I left, it was kind of like I felt like I was losing my family, like that part of my family. But I just wanted to get out of there and go to where I knew I would be loved and I would be accepted and like I was wanted. Because I didn't feel like I was wanted, by there. I knew that you loved me. I remember when I realized I loved you. Do you remember like having any specific moment where you were like, I love her? Was there anything that stood out to you?
I mean, it might have been the part where you got pregnant. No, probably no. No, sorry. No, that's
so inappropriate.
What do you
But
mean?
that's you. It is you. I mean, I think I'm turning red. I'm blushing actually right now.
No, I don't actually remember.
Okay, so
a trigger for that.
I was at home in the bathtub at my parents' house, and I was shaving my legs. And I remember thinking to myself as I was shaving my legs, I was thinking about us hanging out at the house and like we were playing a board game. We used to play board games a lot. I don't remember what board game we had been playing. And then we had played cards with your aunt and uncle, and I just loved spending time with you. I just felt cared for. I just felt loved. I just felt like I belonged, and I felt safe. And I remember I was shaving my legs, and I thought to myself, I wish every day could be like this. And then I remember stopping and going, maybe this is what love is. Like, I wish every day could be like just being happy and laughing and like really enjoying the person that you're with and feeling appreciated and loved and like, like you're just great, Yeah, I remember that. That's when I knew I loved you. That was before you knocked me up. But anyway, I wanted to share that part because that came back to me. So once they let me leave, I packed up everything I owned in some boxes and bags, I think, from my dresser and every possession I had that fit in the space that was mine from the time that I was born until I was 17. And I just packed up what I could and I left. I moved over to move in with your aunt, and she had us in separate rooms. So I had like my own room there for a little while. Until we were married. Yeah.
I was upstairs.
We couldn't be in the same room until we were married. That was her rule. So yeah, I had a room downstairs and you had a room upstairs. I moved over there and I was working at a grocery store at the time. I left my parents' house and I started using my insurance through work and found myself a doctor. And started going, went to my first doctor's appointment, and I never used their health insurance. At some point, I remember my mom saying if I needed to use the health insurance, I could. But the day I left that house was the day that I stopped. I basically was, emancipated. I was only 17, but I didn't ask for anything from them. I paid for myself. don't know. You were working. I think you helped make some of the payments that I had. Like I had gone to the doctor and they made this payment plan for me, and yeah, I made those payments the whole time I was pregnant. Every month I went in and it was like $400 or something, which at the time was a lot of money.
My baby mama taking all my money.
I was working. I paid most of it, but yeah, I never looked back. And I never. My recollection is I never asked them for anything from that time on. I just we took care of ourselves. Like we just moved forward from there. So in 1999, December 99, I graduated high school. In April, I turned 18. In May, I had Alex. In August, I think it was, we got pregnant with Katrina.
Well, let's go back to July.
In July, we got married.
Jeez. Well,
and in August, I got pregnant with Katrina.
What a whirlwind 4 months you had.
That's right. Everybody's making such a big deal about the year 2000 and the world falling apart. And I was just like, let's celebrate it with a bang.
Put everything together instead of it falling apart.
It's like we changed from 1999 to 2000. I turned 18, I had a baby, I got married, and I got pregnant again. Like, what a way to celebrate.
How did you get pregnant again?
I think after that we figured it out. After that we figured it out because we didn't have another baby for like 3.5 years.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. And this is also another story for another time, but we didn't even know that I was pregnant with her until I was like 6 months pregnant. But that's another story for another time. Good thing you weren't
doing crazy stuff.
That's another story for another time. We won't go into that. So anyway,
that was her checking the notes, by the way.
Yeah, I got something. We missed a part. We missed a part. We gotta stay on top here. Deciding what to do with the pregnancy.
No, well, there's 3 options.
Well,
right?
do you remember when this conversation took place?
I don't remember. It was probably after you got pregnant.
It was, but I remember specifically.
I couldn't lose that one.
You had picked me up from work. We were up in Pinole. You picked me up from work, and we were driving from the grocery store towards the freeway, and we were at where the round table is. You know, like the Target and the round table? Mm-hmm. We're driving down that street between work and this street. And
Parkway?
Yeah. And we're like, and this was before all that other stuff went down. We knew I was pregnant.
Right.
But this was before all this stuff I just told you. So, we're whining. I skipped that part.
Okay.
So, we're driving down the street, and I remember saying, so what are you going to do? And you said, well, what are we going to do with what? And I said, with the baby. And you said, well, the way I see it, there are 2 options. Abortion or keeping the baby. And I said, well, the way I see it, there are 2 options. Adoption or keeping the baby. And then you looked at me and you said, well, I guess we agree on something. That was it.
Narrowed it down, didn't it?
That was our conversation on what we're doing. You said, I guess we agree on something. And so then it was like, okay, well, we're having a baby. That was the whole discussion.
I mean, you had your stance, I had my stance. It overlapped.
Yeah, I mean, it did. It did. It was just that. Yeah, that was it. And so yeah, so that's how that conversation took place. There was nothing after that. We just knew that we were gonna have this baby, and we did. And then we got pregnant shortly after that, and then we were still in your aunt's house. And you had gotten a job. Oh, we also left off the part where you dropped school. You dropped your classes when you were given the visitation schedule so that you could show up.
I also had to get a job that paid more.
Yeah.
I had to get more hours.
Yeah.
Because I had a baby to pay for. So staying in school wasn't exactly an option.
Yeah. So
I didn't lose much by not staying in school. It wasn't going to pan out anyway because of the timing.
Yeah. And that's something interesting about, I think about our life, how we can look back at everything that's happened and it's all happened in perfect timing for our life. If things hadn't have happened the way they have in our life, we wouldn't be where we are and wouldn't have learned the lessons we learned and, purchased the homes we purchased, all of that. It's just crazy how much,
Sounds like it's a lot of homes. We've only owned 2 homes ever. So
Yeah,
it's
but
not like
still.
a lot of, purchase the homes.
Right.
Like
Well, anyway, it's just interesting how, like, I wouldn't go back and change anything because we wouldn't be here today. Had I listened to things that people were telling me, I had, people set me down and say, hey, like, it's okay if you want to have an abortion. And for me, I knew that wasn't going to work for me. I knew that I personally would not be able to go through with that and be okay mentally. I think everybody should be able to make that decision for themselves, but for me personally, I knew that wouldn't work, right? And then I had people tell me when they found out that we were engaged, well, you shouldn't get married just because you're pregnant. And I didn't get married just because I was pregnant.
She wanted to get married when she was shaving her legs one
Yeah,
day.
I knew that that's how I wanted to spend the rest of my life. And I had people tell me that I needed to get married to you before the baby came or I would have a bastard child. There were so many opinions coming at me. And I have to say now, looking back, I am proud of myself for standing up for myself, for doing what I wanted to do, for following my heart. I remember when everything was going down before I left my parents' house, my uncle, who lived in Alaska, sent me a bouquet, me and my mom both a bouquet of flowers the same day. The florist pulled up and they sent us, there was a bouquet of flowers for each of us. I still have this little card somewhere. It's up in the attic at the other house in one of the boxes. But on the card, it said something like, I know you're going through a rough time right now, and you'll get through it or whatever. It was very sweet. But then the one thing that he had put in there was, I just want you to remember to always follow your heart. And when I read that card, I just knew I'm going to make decisions for myself and how I want to make them. And it's just looking back and picturing 17-year-old Melissa. I'm so proud of her for being so brave and standing up to all of these people, or not standing up to them, but just saying, thank you for your opinions. This is what I'm going to do with my life. She put up with a lot of crap and she did what she wanted to do and created her own life the way she wanted it to be. Anyway.
Wow. She did all that?
I think so. I don't know if you were around for it. What do you think? What do you think she did?
Well,
anyway.
She ended up having the baby.
We did. We had a baby. And then 3 months or 4 months later, we got pregnant again. And we were still living at your aunt's house. And you got, I think before Katrina was born, you got the job at Release. Yeah. So you got a job at the grocery store. And you started in the deli, right?
Mm-hmm. I worked in the deli for a month and a half.
Uh-huh.
And then Night Crew recruited me to, at the time, it was just a guy who did cardboard. Like, clean up after Night Crew so they could go faster, because they got paid more when you were on Night Crew. You got paid a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got recruited to be on the actual Night Crew.
Yeah.
And so then I got a little bit of a pay increase by going there. I started $8 an hour or something.
Yeah.
And I went to $9 an hour when I got onto Night Crew. And then 3 months later, there was a whole bunch of stuff that happened. That'll be a story for another time. But basically, I worked at the store for a total of 6 months, and I became the assistant Night Crew manager at 19 years old.
Yeah.
And
you got a big pay increase.
And I got a pay increase up to the maximum pay, which was like $18 an hour.
Yeah. And because of that, and the times that we were in 2001, 2002, when they were writing bad mortgages, we bought a house.
Yeah.
We were able to qualify for a loan to buy a house, making $18 an hour.
230-something thousand.
Yeah. I mean, it blows my mind right now living through all we've lived through.
In Vallejo, California.
Yep. So we moved across the bridge to Vallejo. We looked in all the cities between.
We looked at a few houses too, and there was just
And we even looked at moving up north with your dad.
All the ones that were decent were just out of our price range.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we settled on something about the same size as your parents' house. It was 800 something square feet.
It was a little bigger with the converted garage downstairs.
Which wasn't counted in the square
right,
footage.
it wasn't counted because it wasn't permitted, but there was a whole like bonus room downstairs, which was nice and ended up generating income, renting it out to people.
Yeah, we lived there for a while. Then it's a whole thing. But we lost that house in the crash in 2008, and
2012.
That's when the crash started.
Yeah.
And so we started this process of, we did a refinance to try to hold on, and still wasn't able to do it, and we ended up doing a bankruptcy, and then during the bankruptcy, we ended up buying the house here where we live now in American Canyon, which is just the city over.
I think we did it before the bankruptcy, but yeah, we were looking at that process because you had lost your job.
It was during, because we protected the house here in the bankruptcy.
Oh, okay.
And so I'll be in trouble later for correcting her. Oh wait, I can't get in trouble, right?
You can get in trouble.
Okay. Anyway, we then were able to move here.
Yeah.
And we have lived here in American Canyon for 12 years.
Yeah, almost 13.
And almost 2 years ago, about a year and 10 months ago now, oh my goodness.
Lock the bathrooms.
She got this job where she has to lock the bathrooms.
For the pool.
In November, she took the job, but in October, so right about this time, 2 years ago,
yeah,
we were having a discussion because the management spot for the community that we live in was becoming available, and they didn't have anybody to take it. And at the time, she worked as a secretary for the Vallejo School District, and she had worked there for a long time. She was comfortable. She wasn't making good money, but she was comfortable, and it was solid. And we had a lot of discussions about her ability to take the job. And the management company that ran the park didn't have anybody to fill in, so they were open to somebody who had office experience coming in and learning the ropes from the outgoing manager, and she did that. So she took that job, and we'll obviously be able to go into it more.
Yeah, that'll probably be another episode.
But she took that job, and we moved into the house we're in now. This is one of those rooms here, which is her room, her room with her stuff. And we're using it as our studio here, and the house came with the job because you're required to be an on-site manager. She took the job, and we moved up here, and we left the nest down there.
Yeah.
And we left the kids down there.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-bedroom house down there, and all 3 of our kids have a bedroom. There's a bit more to it than that.
Yeah, that'll be another episode explaining that.
We left the nest.
We did.
Came up here, and we've spent the last almost 2 years up here because we moved in December.
Mm-hmm. It was like December 5th.
And
2022. Almost 2 years.
I don't think our relationship's ever been better than it is now.
I would agree.
We get to spend a lot more time together. We get to talk a lot more. We don't have to worry about the kids being around to hear what we're talking about and
well, and also they're adults
them
now,
or
so like, yeah,
you know, that we don't have to do that. So we get to just live by ourselves for the most part.
Yeah, that's another episode too.
Sometimes
we
people
had house
stay
guests
with
for
us
a while.
as house guests.
But yeah, I mean that's kind of, you know, yeah. I mean it's the last 20-something years summed up into hopefully one episode. I don't know how long we ran here. But yeah, we have spent the last 2 years really kind of, I don't know if I would say learning each other, but I feel like just defining ourselves in a new way, like just defining who we are as a couple instead of as parents, since we went right into being parents.
Dated for just a few months before she somehow got pregnant, and then we had to deal with navigating this teen pregnancy And then navigating us becoming adults and then raising kids.
Yeah. We grew up together.
And when
While
you're
we raised
raising
kids.
young kids, you don't generally spend a lot of time worrying about each other.
No. We were just surviving. We were just trying to make the best of our situation while giving our kids more than we had. Or, you know, I don't say more than we had in a monetary way, right? I think that all parents set out to do better for their kids than they felt was done for them. So for me, I wanted to make sure that I created a home that was a safe place to land. I didn't ever want my kids to feel like they had to be scared of me, or that I would think less of them for any decisions they made or mistakes they made. I wanted it to be a safe place for them to come and always know that they could always use me as an excuse if they ever got into a situation that they wanted to get out of. They could just say, no, my mom and dad won't let me or whatever. I wanted to create what I needed when I was 17, what I needed when I was young for my family.
That we thought would be better for the kids than what we grew up with.
Right.
You know, you want to make improvements on what you had to deal with. Like, you can see all the things. Your story of how you grew up is different from your parents' story of how you grew up. And so,
Yes.
you know what you think is a shortcoming, and you want to fix that. You don't want to have the same, that generational trauma passed down to your kids. Just because your parents did it doesn't mean that you should do it.
And I don't think that people are aware of it even. I don't think that any parent has a child and is like, oh, you're beautiful, how can I screw you up? Like, I don't think that's a thing. You just kind of do what you know. You do what you were taught. You know, early on, when the kids would misbehave, I spanked them because that's how I was raised. And early on, I learned I'm not a spanker. I was spanked when I did things wrong, and it wasn't a lot. It wasn't often. I don't remember it happening very often. But, you know, my kids didn't get spanked very often. But the one time I was trying to spank to discipline, it was for the birds. It was not.
We'll talk about that.
That's a whole nother
another
episode.
time.
But it did not sit well with me. I'm like, this is not for me. And I never, after that, I think he was like 3, maybe 4.
No, he was a little bit older than that, but he was
Not
like
very
5
old.
or 6.
Okay, 5 or 6. And I was just like, I'm never doing this again.
But we didn't really do a lot of spanking for the kids, and
No.
that's how we did things.
Yeah. And this will be another episode too, but like your childhood was very different than mine. You came from a different childhood, family situation than I did. And I think there were a lot of things about your childhood that affected how you parented as well. You know? And
Which was not very much.
you
didn't do much.
You worked a lot.
I worked nights the first long time,
Yeah.
10 years almost,
Yeah.
nights.
It was like being a single mom a lot of the time, because even though you would have days off, you would try to stay on your sleep schedule. And I would try to get the kids out of the house to be quiet. We had a small house, and he's trying to sleep for work. So I would try to take them out of the house and so that he could sleep. And there's only so much you can do with 3 small children.
And no money.
And no money. We did, I was grateful for the times, because at that time there were indoor mall play places that didn't charge you.
McDonald's play place.
McDonald's play places. You could go buy a Happy Meal and let your kid play for hours. Like, we did a lot of parks, and, I think that we had a membership to the zoo.
We couldn't just give them tablets.
No, tablets weren't really a thing either. So yeah, it was just a different time. And I mean, these are all like, we can dive further into this on other episodes. This was just our first one, kind of an overview of how we became us. You good? You a little scared there?
We're also not going to edit out any of the dog snoring. I'm going to leave all that in there.
Yeah, we just decided that we're going to show up as we are and see what it evolves into. But we wanted to just really get started. And so I think that covers everything.
She's got to check her notes.
Yeah. That covers everything for our first episode. I think we did it. High five. I'm proud of you.
You almost missed the high five.
High five.
That was better. The dog doesn't like.
Sorry, Raina. Lena doesn't like it. So yeah.
All right.
Thanks for watching. And what are you supposed to say? Like and subscribe.
Is that what you're supposed to say?
I don't know. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and follow us, or
and then come watch the next one.
come watch the next one. We're gonna get things started and get it editing and get stuff out there. So yeah,
She's got to learn how to edit.
I
It's
hope
gonna be a
you'll.
process.
That's his job. But we hope that you will come back for more. We hope that was interesting to you, and we're just gonna be doing more discussions like this, and the topics are gonna range from everything that you experience in married life, and probably other things as well. So
things you don't experience in married
things you
life.
don't experience, and things you do, and things you experience raising kids, and then empty nesting, and yeah, all of it, the whole range. Parenting, and other people's parenting.
And still parenting after you left the nest.
You never stop being a parent. You never stop worrying about your children. Some of you, this is, yeah, duh. But I never stop worrying. I think you worry less than I worry. I worry, he thinks I do worry too much. He's
I don't
right.
worry about anything.
He's not a big worrier. But yeah, it's just, you're never done. When you think you're done, you're actually never done.
Like this episode of this podcast. So we will talk to you guys
Bye!
next time.
Okay, bye!